Welcome everyone to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service for July 27th, 2021. I am Sally Gaskell, your current president. Thank you all for being here. We'd like, Natalie, for you to show the flag for a few moments of respectful silence.
Never know what to do when I'm looking at the flag. So I can't.
Thank you very much. And now I'm happy to introduce Tim Jessen, who's going to give our reflection.
Thank you, President Sally. I've been wanting to hear Congressman Hamilton for many months now. And so when I rejoiced in his coming, I also thought, well, I'll sign up for the reflection for that day. They're always wanting us to do that, not knowing, of course, what I might say. But a Google search gave me the answer. I typed his name in and some other words and phrases and came up with a great 3-part series done some years ago by Public Broadcasting on the congressman and his brother Richard, or Dick, who sadly has recently left us. Dick is, as all of you surely know, the father of our mayor, John Hamilton. The interview was conducted by the popular Judy O'Bannon, a former First Lady of Indiana, who is revered by all of us with Ivy Tech connections. Mrs. O'Bannon, for more than an hour on 3 separate shows, had a conversation with the politician and the pastor. For Dick Hamilton was a distinguished Methodist minister, both here in 2 congregations and also in Indianapolis. So the brothers grew up in a preacher's household, oftentimes derided as a miserable fate. But for them, it was a source of great pride, important values, and enduring hope. Their stories reminded me, in an unsolicited ad, of Charlotte Zitlow's recent book, which is titled The Minister's Daughter, which I will unashamedly push. She learned, as did they, in a preacher's household, how to deal with controversy and differences of opinion, which is always present in religion as it is in politics. It also influenced their view of the world and an international vision beyond our shores. So if you have an hour or two, look up that conversation on public television to be further inspired, to learn how 2 brothers influenced their community and world for the better, all in the name of the good of humankind and the continued search for the answers that still elude us. I can't wait to hear Congressman Hamilton expound on the problems of the world today as he shows us the value of a life well lived with faith and courage. I will say amen.
Tim, thank you very much for another wonderful reflection. In honor of our distinguished speaker today, we have many guests, over 15 of you, so I'm not going to read your names, but please do give a wave if you are visiting us today, either as a guest of a member or as a visiting Rotarian. One person I do want to point out is past District Governor Sue Wright. Hey, Sue, with the blue wall, you can't miss her. And many other distinguished people as well. So thank you all for joining us. Bloomington Rotary is an engaged group of people who continue to make a difference in our community. We have connections to like-minded people around the world. We're here every week, and we'd love for you to join us at a future meeting anytime. Thanks today to our producers on Zoom, Michael Shermis, Alan Barker, Aaron Davis, and Natalie Blaze. I don't know what we'd do without you. As a note, Alan and Michael have been working hard on figuring out how to create a good hybrid meeting experience for people who are going to continue to meet on Zoom when in 2 weeks, we're back in person at the Frangipani Room. We're going to be meeting this Friday at the Frangipani room to test out some tech. And I want to thank everybody who's going to be on the tech committee. Our roundabout reporter for this week is Bill Perkins. And by the way, happy birthday, Bill. Your birthday is August 2nd, doing double duty. We have a couple of member anniversaries this week. Connie Shakalis, 1 year as a Rotarian, and Mike Baker, 29 years. So together, 30 years. I have just a couple of announcements this week. First, under the heading of Women, Peace Building and Community, there will be a free event to support CJAM, the Community Justice and Mediation Center, tomorrow on Wednesday, July 28th. This will be a intergenerational conversation with our own Charlotte Zitlow and our own Aubrey Cedar. It's going to be moderated on Zoom by Vi Simpson. Contact CJAM for more information for that terrific event. The program committee for Bloomington Rotary meets today at 1:30, and the community service committee meets August 3rd. I want to thank, from the depths of my heart, Sarah Laughlin for stepping to the plate and serving as the community service committee chair for the coming year. We're looking forward to the members of the committee spearheading a diverse group of voluntary experiences for all of us in the club spread throughout the year. I would now like to suggest that we have some happy dollars to support Teachers Warehouse. It's the time of year when everybody's thinking about back to school much earlier than probably we should be, August the 4th for the MCCSC. So let's give it up to Teachers Warehouse. Is anybody happy for any particular?
Yes, this is Glenda, and I want to celebrate that I just over the weekend got to see old high school friends, as well as most of my mother's family. It was for a memorial service, but it was still wonderful to see everyone and to celebrate life. And so for Teachers Warehouse, I'm happy.
Thanks, Glenda.
This is Ron. I would like to share my happiness that the Teacher Warehouse opened yesterday, and we had a nice group of teachers, and we have so many volunteers from our club supporting Teachers Warehouse. I'm going to pledge $25 today and hope my colleagues in Rotary will also go to the PayPal account and support Teachers Warehouse by matching my $25 gift. I also want to remind you that August 7th is our supply drive, and we will have our volunteers at Staples and Kroger College Mall and Kroger South handing out our wish list and filling bins. So it's going to be an exciting time for Teachers Warehouse. And I thank my Rotary colleagues.
Thank you, Ron.
I'd like to jump in and say I'd like to match Ron for $25 for Teachers Warehouse in honor of the fact that Congressman Hamilton is speaking with us today on a subject that we should all care deeply about. Thank you, Congressman Hamilton.
I would like to jump in and pledge also $25 in honor of the fact that my friend Garrett Heiting is sitting next to me and joins us for this meeting to listen to all of us and Lee Hamilton. Garrett, by the way, owns a veneer processing company here in town for many years. So he is an old Bloomingtonian, so to speak. Thanks.
Okay.
Young one.
I want to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I want to add $25 to match to go to the Teachers Warehouse in honor of Randy Bridges, whose life we celebrated last Saturday, and both his life and his wife. And so many people who, Randy, I want to remind you, was a Republican judge, and he was a good friend of mine. So, and so were many of the other judges. I saw more judges on Saturday than I've ever seen before, plus former prosecutors and former public defenders. So it was a wonderful reunion of justice in Monroe County in memory of Randy Bridges. And he was, of course, a very devoted Rotarian. So good.
Thank you, Charlotte.
And it was all happiness, yes, except sadness that he was gone, of course.
I'll add my $25. to match Randy's, or to match Ron's, I'm giving my $25 in honor of not going to buy school supplies for my 2 children, although it was a high point of the year for them. And I'm just thinking back about the, you know, the wonderfulness of a new box of crayons and coming home and laying all those things out and looking at them before you've, you know, touched anything.
I have happy dollars. This is Connie. And I have 27 happy dollars because today is July 27th, which is the Greek Orthodox name day for Gus Bandalis Shakalis.
Nice, thank you.
And I have happy.
Yes.
I have happy dollars because I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm looking forward to not being on Zoom and being back in the IMU at the Frangipani room.
And I saw, Hank, that you signed up to be our greeter today. That would be our first greeter in about 17 months. And I think that's totally appropriate. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, wonderful gifts to happy dollars, and terrific as always to hear from everyone. So now it's time for the main event, our speaker, and we're going to ask you to pose questions in the chat today. Bob Zaltzberg is going to be moderating the chat for us, and we'll ask questions after our distinguished speaker is concluded his remarks. And to introduce Congressman Hamilton is Trent Deckard.
Thank you very much. And it is indeed an honor to introduce today's speaker, the Honorable Lee Hamilton. Lee has made our community, our state, our nation, and world very proud, and we're so grateful to have him here with us today. Lee Hamilton served in the U.S. House for 34 years, from 1965 to 1999, chairing the Committee on Foreign Affairs, the Intelligence Committee, and Select Committee to investigate covert transactions with Iran. I remember those last hearings, not only because it preempted daytime TV when I was small, but it was 10 times more interesting. And for my generation, it was our first chance to see congressional oversight in our checks and balances go to work. While in Congress, Lee's reputation for district services, advocating for and being available to his constituents were well known. When meeting with people back home who were angry or excited about an issue or this or that, he would offer more information and more education around that issue, so that even if people did not adopt differing viewpoints, they were better informed by understanding them and this individual that would talk them through these things. The 9th District appreciated Lee Hamilton and that important work that he did, and sent him to Washington 17 times because he did come back home. He offered his help, and he had a deep understanding of our needs while doing those big, big things. Following his time in Congress, Lee Hamilton became president and director of the Wilson Center. In times of more adversity, he was once again called by his nation to serve as co-chair of the bipartisan 9/11 Commission and the Iraq Study Group. And his expertise includes national security, foreign policy, representative government, and civic education. He's authored some incredible books on all of that, in addition to the regular columns that we enjoy in our local paper. In 2015, in honor of his work, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by our president. Currently, Lee serves as a distinguished scholar in the IU School of Global and International Studies, and is a professor of practice in IU's O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs. And more recently, the IU community has been proud to have announced the naming of the Lee H. Hamilton and Richard G. Lugar School of Global and International Studies, and are so proud to have those names there. The congressman and the late Senator Lugar exemplified the principle that the United States is more secure and prosperous, and the world is a better place when we engage with it. He's going to share with us today observations on democracy, but before he does, we have a brief video that gives even more insight into today's speaker.
Today, we celebrate some extraordinary people, innovators, artists, and leaders who contribute to America's strength as a nation. And we offer them our highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
It's an honor reserved to those who've contributed significantly to world peace or to America's national interests, society, or culture. It's been bestowed upon a wide range of people, from Mother Teresa to Bob Hope, from Rosa Parks to Yo-Yo Ma. But the honor is exceedingly rare. In an average year, only 1 in every 20 million American adults will receive it.
I was not surprised that Lee was nominated for and received the Medal of Freedom. Given his commitment to his job, commitment to the country, I think it was well deserved. Lee dealt with major foreign policy issues that were important to be addressed in a bipartisan way. He was eminently fair in doing that. His service as the head of the co-chair of the 911 Commission was critically important to have someone of his character and his respect that he had gained heading up that investigation. So he certainly laid down a mark, and I think, in my opinion, well deserved that medal.
Fellow Rotarians, please join me in the warmest of Rotary welcomes for our own Congressman Lee Hamilton.
Congressman, you're on mute. Let's figure out how to get you off mute.
You should be all set now, Lee.
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's perfect. Thank you.
I want to thank those that have made very gracious comments about me and the work that I have done in Washington and in Indiana. I just want to say a very simple thing, and that is that I believe in representative democracy. It's really amazing when you stop to think of what we have been able to accomplish as a country under the framework of representative democracy. Now, we've made some mistakes along the way, for sure, but if you look at the scope and significance of the achievements we have had as a country, you cannot help, I think, but be proud. I hope, and I don't think we are arrogant in that pride, but it is the framework of representative democracy that has permitted us to do great things, not only in the government sector, but in the private sector as well. So I speak up for representative democracy, and I hope all of us have a sense of pride in our nation and its accomplishments. I hope all of us feel a responsibility to try to make our corner of the world better. You know, when you stop to think about it, most of us are not going to be able to solve the great problems of the day. We will not fix the Social Security system. You and I, in all likelihood, will not bring affordable health care to every American. We certainly will not have places of power and prestige in the international councils of the world. But what is expected of us is that we make our corner of the world, however defined, better as we strive for a more perfect union. And the representative democracy helps us do that. So that's, I think we're greatly blessed as a nation to have that framework. And we as citizens are blessed to operate within that framework to make this a better community and a better state and a better nation. Thank you.
All right. Lee, I'm gonna ask you some questions, and we've already gotten one in on our chat, and it's about the insurrection on January 6th and the hearings that just started now. The questioner wants to get your opinion on it, and I guess I would add to that and say, what do you want to know out of these hearings? What do you expect to learn?
Well, I think you begin with the proposition that that was a very dark day in the history of our country. I personally remember how strongly it hit me as I saw these people coming into the Capitol building, putting their feet up on the desk of the Speaker of the House, ignoring totally the House procedures, breaking the window in order to try to get into the House chamber, a chamber that I had developed great respect for. So this date was a black day, a dark day in the history of our country. Now, the good thing, of course, is the way we reacted to it. We tried to understand the facts, first of all. Tom Kane and I, when we served on the 9/11 Commission, would often turn to our staff to the point that it became a point of amusement and say to them, what are the facts? That is the beginning point in almost any inquiry. And in many ways, it's the most important part of the inquiry, to get the facts on the table. Now, it sounds simple, but it is not. Facts are fluid, facts keep changing, and certainly they can be subject to different interpretations. But you must have a consensus that we're going to try to understand as best we can what happened in the history of our country. Now, once you've done that, you've got to see what you can do to prevent incidents like that terrible day from occurring again. And what do we need to do, not only in Washington, not only in the framework under which we work in a representative democracy, but in all walks of life. What can we do to improve the quality of life of the American people? So my thought first being what I wanted to contribute to the success and direction of my country. That's my first thought, and it's my last thought. It's the thought I want to convey to other people. I think you and I, as American citizens, are greatly blessed because of those who have preceded us in our country in all kinds of ways and given us the life that we have come to enjoy and the opportunity it provides. So we're grateful for that. But gratitude is not enough. There has to be performance on the part of us who have received the grace, if you will. And our role is to improve our corner of the world in all ways that we can contribute.
So let me follow up on that and say, you talked about the most important thing is to get to the facts. It seems like these days, compared to when you were serving, it's more difficult for the two political parties to agree on a common set of facts. I mean, even to the point where, the previous president wouldn't accept the fact that he lost the last election. How troubling is that to you? And do you think we can get back to a country in which we agree more readily, at least, on a certain set of facts.
Bob, I think your comments are actually absolutely on the mark. Who among us is not discouraged to some degree, some more than others, of course, with the status of the country? Look, our job is to make the country work, and to do that in the best way that we can by impacting our corner of the world. I'll make one comment only of what we have to do, and that is we have to have confidence in the system. That's not easy to do. There are plenty of reasons to be discouraged about the way representative democracy works. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have an alternative. In our system, it's representative democracy or chaos. I choose representative democracy. We have to make it work. We don't have a choice about that. It's the only system we've got. And so what we have to do is work within that system, recognize that it's not a perfect system, there is no such thing, and use that system as we understand it to move the ball forward and make progress in the quality of life of the American people.
Here's a question that follows up closely to that, and you may or may not have more to add on that topic, but Dave Meyer asks, what do you think President Biden can do to better ensure the continuation of our representative democracy?
Well, presidents are very special people. I don't know of anybody that has the ear of the American people more than a president. So they have to use the bully pulpit, don't they? And they have to make it clear what the problems are. This is one of the powers of the presidency. And what they have to lay out a program as to what they think can be done to improve our economy, our political system, our foreign policy. So the president has the chief responsibility, and a heavy burden it is. And incidentally, all of us who have any kind of association with Joe Biden have to take that responsibility very seriously. Joe Biden and I worked together very closely when he was on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and I was on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Over the years, I've lost touch with him, but I have a responsibility to let him know, and I try to do that as best I can, what I think needs to be done to make the country better, stronger, more prosperous, and free. And I think all of us have to try to find ways in which we can do that. You're recognizing Charlotte Zislow today. I was told Bob Hamill's in the audience. These are people that have figured out, if you would, what they can do to improve their communities and the quality of life of our people. All of us have that responsibility. Some in a big stage, some in a very little stage. But bigness or littleness is not the key. The key is whether or not we have people who are willing to step forward. One of the words that keeps popping up as I read the statements of the founding fathers is the word virtue. I guess it's not a very good word to use these days. I'm not sure why. We don't usually associate virtue with public action, but the founding fathers did. And James Madison, among others, would identify as virtue as being the prime ingredient of public policy. Well, I don't know what you think of that. I think it's pretty perceptive myself. If you're going to have a good nation doing benign things, you have to have virtuous people. Don't be arrogant about it, but they have to be willing to focus on the problems and ask themselves, how can I make the life of my fellow Americans better? All of us need to focus on that and do what we can. We have to make the school board work better. We have to make the Affordable Health Care Act better. A lot of differences of opinion as to what better means, but we have to work as best we see it ourselves, how to fix the problems and advocate those positions. We have to stand up and we have to speak out in order to improve the country, to make it a more perfect union.
One way that people are able to speak out is through the ballot box and through voting. And one of the recent columns that you wrote, you pointed out that some apparent attempts to limit the right of people to vote is a little bit different from the way that you're used to looking at ensuring that people have the right to vote. Could you talk about that a little bit?
It's been a source of some amazement to me over a period of time to see the number of people who work hard to deny the vote to other people. I think that's not in accord with the principles of our nation. This nation is stronger when every participant, when every person votes, takes on the responsibility, the first responsibility, I would say, of a citizen to vote. They must do that, you and I must do it. And if you don't vote, you really can't complain too much, it seems to me, about what public officials do. We want to keep public officials in the public eye. We want to scrutinize every nook and cranny of their activities. We want to let them know that we're standing out there looking down on them or looking up at them, whatever you want to say, to see that their actions measure up to what our founding fathers' ideals were. And virtue is an important part of that. So I don't reject that word at all. I value it. And I believe that virtue means, in the public context, that we're all trying to figure out how to expand the public good and to help our fellow citizens. I am impressed, and I know many of you are, that a lot of Americans are having a tough time. Fortunately, many Americans are doing very well. We can be very grateful for that. But we also know, unless we have a very restricted acquaintance, of a lot of people struggling to make things bearable in their life. We want to the extent we possibly can to help them and our neighbors live a full and decent life. Not everybody can be a billionaire, thank goodness. Not everybody can be the smartest guy in the room, thank goodness. But we can all make a contribution to the extent of our own property, our own proclivities, our own abilities. We all are in this together. And the country will succeed to the extent that we succeed in working with one another to attack our problems. Look, the American people are not stupid. They understand how difficult these problems are. They know you're not going to solve them overnight and not likely to solve many of them in our lifetime. But that doesn't mean you have an obligation, that you have a privilege of simply stepping aside. What it means is that to you as a citizen and to me as a citizen, we try to do something about it and make things better.
Here's a question from Aaron Davis that is about, the idea of expanding the group that's going to help us work on these problems. His question is, how can we make sure that the current energy in respect to racism in the United States can be translated into positive action?
Look, there aren't any guarantees in this business. I can't assure anybody that we're going to do these things. All we can do as a citizen is put our stamp of approval on things that are being done in the community that we think are moving in the right direction. That's all. There are leaders in this community who are exceptional in their concern and their compassion for people. I want to support those people. I don't care if the label is liberal and conservative, Republican or Democrat. If their heart's in the right place, if they're trying to improve that quality, I'm for them. And I want them to succeed. That's what we all need to do.
Here's another question from Jim Bright that also is, follows up nicely to what you just said. During your 34 years in Congress, you were known for many things, including your ability to reach across the aisle. Who were some of your best friends in the other party, and what will it take to get today's senators and congressmen to have that point of view you were talking about, where they can come together in a spirit of collegiality and work toward the common good?
It became very obvious to me, Bob, that if you're going to do anything that amounts to, that is sustainable, that is going to last, it's not going to be done by doing it yourself. Every advance I can think of for the country over my period of time that has moved us forward has been bipartisan. That doesn't mean that you have an equal number of Democrats and an equal number of Republicans, but it does mean that you have Republicans and Democrats and maybe independents as well represented. They deserve to be represented. It's a little hard to figure out how to do it, but they certainly deserve it. So there isn't any magic key here. We all know the system. We all know how hard it is to make it work. And what we need to do is to find the way we can move that system forward. On a problem like energy, which is so pervasive and so difficult, there's no simple answer. No simple answer to most of the problems we confront. But that's the challenge of it. That's the glory of it. That's what makes life interesting, the challenge. And goodness gracious, if these problems have been easy, that have been solved a long time ago. You got to remember that the people that have wrestled with them are good people, capable people, well-motivated people, and they haven't solved them. Well, we may not solve them either, but that doesn't excuse us from making a crack at it, taking a crack at it.
Just to follow up on that, do you think that the attitudes that we see now, the very difficult, what seems to be very difficult chore of getting people to look at somebody else's point of view, when you were able to reach across the aisle, you could build some partnerships, some relationships with people, and it looks like our politicians today are not necessarily interested in that. Do you think I'm on the right track there? Do you think it was easier to build those relationships because you were interested in doing it when you were in Congress, as opposed to sort of towing the party line now?
My goodness, I've sat in 1,000 groups. One of the questions always on my mind was who in this group can help me solve the problem or problems that we were confronted with. Every group has some group of problems they're interested in, and that's a good thing. I would sit in that group and I'd say, now who around this table is going to help me solve this problem? It could be all of them, could be none of them, but that was a question on my mind. I was always looking for a partner. I didn't care what the label was. Labels get in the way so often of a solution to a problem. He's a conservative. I don't like conservatives. He's a liberal. I don't like liberals. That kind of thinking blocks us. We are where we are. We are dealing with the people that are in front of us, not people as we'd like them to be, but the people there. That's who we have to work with. Would we do better if we had another group of people? Every one of us could think of that. But that's not the problem. The problem is working with the people in front of you who are trying to do the same thing, hopefully, that you are, maybe not. Maybe they're trying to do exactly the different from what you want. That doesn't matter. What matters is that they're trying to solve the problem. And I think that's the attitude we have to take. I can remember group after group going around the room in my mind, looking at people and say, okay, who in this group is going to really be helpful in solving this problem? That's the person I was interested in. And that's the person I would go to talk about the problem. There are a lot of people that sit in a committee and don't do a doggone thing. You want people who are active, constructive, trying to solve the problem. If they've got that kind of an attitude, I'll work with them no matter who they are. If they don't have that attitude, why bother? They're not going to get you anywhere.
Here's a question about your relationship with the various presidents that you worked with. You mentioned LBJ earlier when we were talking. You worked with several presidents, ending with Clinton. Jim Bright wants to know, was there one president with whom you had an especially close relationship?
Well, on a personal basis, I was quite close with Jerry Ford. There were several reasons for that. He and I were neighbors in Virginia, Northern Virginia, across the river from the Potomac from the capital. We lived a mile or so apart. We were both former athletes. He was a great one. I think he may have been All-American, I'm not sure. He was a football player. In my case, much less so. But both of us very interested in athletics. Both of us interested in the public process, being members of the Congress. So he was one person that and then his wife and my wife were very, very close friends, did all kinds of things together. So I had a personal relationship with Jerry Ford. Look, I look upon presidents with awe. To get elected president of the United States is one whale of a job. And the people that have done it in my lifetime, I think are good people. I can make a few exceptions to that, but by and large, if you look over the bunch, and we wouldn't agree in every case, they are good people trying to solve the problem in front of them. And that's what I focused on. Can this person help me? And what do they bring to the table that'll help me advance the solution to the problem.
There's been a lot of discussion in these days about, and I'm going to talk about the other chamber, the Senate, but about the filibuster. Has the filibuster, what's the value of it, and has it outlived its usefulness?
I believe in representative democracy. I believe that you want a system that will identify the problem, examine the problem, understand the problem, explore the options in solving it in a rational, reasonable way. I don't like the filibuster. It gets in the way of democracy. If it were up to me, I'd abolish it. But it's not up to me. So we have to figure out how to work with it. So I want to do all I can to restrain it. If I ever have a vote, say filibuster or no filibuster, I'm going to vote no filibuster. But as long as we have it, we have to try to confine it, restrict it in its use. So I'm supportive of efforts to restrain, and there are such efforts, to restrain the impact of the filibuster. I look upon the filibuster as being anti-democratic. I believe in putting the question to a vote and moving forward with the implementation, depending on how that vote comes out. The filibuster blocks that process. It's a barrier to that process. So you have to try to limit the filibuster today, in my view.
Go ahead.
Some people love it.
You've had a distinguished history of working in national security. When you think now about our national security concerns, what keeps you up at night?
I worry less about our external foes than our internal problems. I'm confident of the American position in the world. I'm pleased with American leadership. By and large, I have differences of opinion here and there, obviously, but by and large, I think American leadership in the global affairs is benign, is beneficial, and needs to be supported. I want to see Americans sitting at the table. I was reading this morning about my friend Wendy Sherman, who's #2 at the Department of State, having dealt with the Korean problem. She's a very able person, a good representative. I want to be supportive of that kind of person. So that's my chief attitude, I guess, at the moment, wanting to try to support people who are in the arena in whatever way I can.
All right, we have time for one more question, I'm told, and this one comes from Cameron Davidson. What advice do you have for young people seeking to make meaningful difference in the world through global engagement?
Well, the great good fortune of this country is we have this unending stream of talented people coming into the system. And we have a lot of people who want to do the right thing, as George Bush would say, and I referred to earlier. That's a tremendous asset for us. It's a real joy to see those people, their energy, their enthusiasm, their knowledge of the problem. I don't know of anything that gives me greater pleasure than to see that kind of young person coming forward to try to solve. You know, I kind of walk away from having talked with them or met those people most of them young, not all of them, most of them young, saying to myself, well, Lee, you can let up a little bit and turn it over to others. And that's a good feeling to have. I've done my part. Some people say I've messed up. Some people say I've done okay. Doesn't matter now. I've run the course. What does matter is the people coming along and what their quality is. So everything you can do, promote good people, demand good people as leaders, support good people as leaders. And I think if we do that as citizens, this country will not only survive, it'll prosper.
All right, well, Lee, it's been my pleasure talking to you again today. I thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back over to Sally Gaskell.
Bob, thank you so much for moderating. Congressman Hamilton, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and for helping us to be inspired to improve our communities. In honor of your presentation today, we'll be making a donation to Pantry 279 in Ellettsville, which addresses food insecurity for our community's most vulnerable. And now, Alam Barker will introduce next week's program.
Thank you very much, Sally, and what an incredibly inspiring hour we've all had together. I'm very moved, having come out of South Africa during the dark days of apartheid. This was a very, very inspiring hour for me. So thank you, Congressman Hamilton. That was really amazing. Next week, we have our final Zoom meeting before we go in person. Next week being the 3rd of what is next week? August the 3rd. It will be Bill Brown, architect and club member. He will be sharing with us 7 secrets of affordable, energy positive architecture. So that should be very interesting.
Thank you. Now let's close the meeting by reciting the 4-way test +1. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second,
fair.
Is it fair
Fair.
to all
concerned. Third,
will it build
goodwill
and
better friendships?
Fourth,
Fourth,
will it be
will it be
beneficial
beneficial
to all
to all
concerned?
concerned?
And
Fifth,
is it
is it
fun?
fun?
Ding-a-ding-a-ding. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks.